Okay, does it show it's your, okay, there it goes. Mine's kind of lagging behind here. All right, there you go. Co-Chair Washington, you're on.
Okay, we have a quorum, and so I'm going to call this meeting to order. Rose, would you be willing to take roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Kadiai?
I'm here.
Thank you. Commissioner Gishi?
Good morning, I'm here.
Thank you. Commissioner Kabodi Adekai? Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Phillips?
I'm here.
And Co-Chair Washington?
Here.
And Commissioner Scott?
Present.
Commissioner Toya?
Commissioner Toya, present.
Commissioner Weathersby?
Present.
Commissioner Whitehat? And Commissioner Yellowhair is excused. If you hear a grunting noise, that's my dog, so just excuse. Okay, the next one, so I included now land acknowledgement on here, and I will go ahead and read that, and then next time we'll have different various commissioners read the acknowledgement, if that's okay with you. The
Yes.
Flagstaff's,
Sorry.
excuse me?
I was just saying that's fine for that process.
Okay. Sorry, sorry. The Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's Indigenous nations and original Storks. These lands, still inhabited by Native descendants, border mountains sacred to Indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home. Thank you. Next is public comment.
I don't believe that there are any members of the public that have signed in, and so we'll just move to the next item on the agenda.
Yep, this is Commissioner Weathersby.
Yes.
I would just like to acknowledge that it's Black History Month that we're meeting in.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And then I also believe Councilmember Shimoni has his hand up.
Yes, Councilmember.
Thank you, Co-Chair Washington. And I just wanted to welcome you all to the meeting today and thank you for your time. And Rose, thank you for reading that land acknowledgement. You know, just hearing that read with you all, like, you know, that's a big impact that you all have helped with the city, and that's really exciting to be a part of with you. So looking forward to all the good work ahead, including the discussion today on today's agenda. But yeah, thank you all for being with us, and just want to say hi. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
The next one.
Go ahead. Yes.
The next is approval of agenda. Okay, you can see it. Never mind. Go ahead and go, Co-Chair Washington.
Okay, approval of minutes, and there are none at this time. General business, none at this time. We move to discussion items, and Southwest Decision Resources Incorporated, continuation of stakeholder interview.
Yes, thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
This is Andy Rogers. Nice to be back with you. Let us tune into our new skill set, which is sharing our own information. So hold on a second. Carrie, my colleague, is gonna share a little video of the property at hand. And while we all get settled, is there anyone who is here today that wasn't able to be with us the last time we had this discussion about the Thorpe Annex parcel? Or were you all there? Speak if you weren't there, please. Okay, great. Well, this is part 2, and I think I stopped sharing, Carrie. So this is part 2 of our discussion, part 2 of probably, hopefully, many, many parts. As a reminder, we are the group that has been contracted with the city to have some robust community dialogue surrounding the future of this 8.5-acre parcel, which lives in the middle of Thorpe Park. Of interest and so much support so far is the development of an Indigenous community cultural center, which would be centered within the historic stone building that is currently still on site. So we met with you briefly last time to start having this discussion. And this is part 2. So Rose has been working with us all along. We have a few questions to guide us. We've also prepared just a very short synthesis that's building of the kinds of things that we've heard from Indigenous voices, and we'll share a little bit of that with you today just to get the conversation started. I think we have a couple of hours if we choose to use that whole time. And again, this is just the very beginning of the process. I see Dorothy raised her hand. Commissioner Gishi?
Good morning. Just a real quick question.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. Is currently?
It is. So I'm going to turn it over to Carrie now so we don't stumble all over each other, but Carrie will walk you through this. So here we go.
Yes. Good morning, commissioners. Thank you again for your time today. We felt like it might be a little bit helpful, and I know that it always is for me, to get some visual perspective about this piece of land that we are talking about. So I'm going to play, this video is just under 3 minutes, and it really is just it's a compilation of drone footage to give you guys an idea of what the parcel looks like as it stands right now. So the picture that you're seeing, and I'll start the video, is how the parcel currently looks. So I'm going to go ahead and press play and cross my fingers that everything is working.
In toes.
Yes. So what you're going to be seeing here is, this is the way that parcel used to look. There used to be more buildings on there when it was housing the public works from the city of Flagstaff. And then there is a bar that's, and then it gives you an idea of how the parcel looks currently. And then here we're going to go ahead and get a flyover. This is the southern portion of the parcel with Aztec Street or Aztec Road, I'm not 100% sure, running north where that truck is driving. And then I'll just go ahead and let you guys kind of visualize what this parcel looks like. I'm sure some of you have been there, but maybe not recently.
Right, so we're on the west side now. That's the city sustainability building, as well as some garages. That is Aztec Road over there to the west. It's a little pixely, but hopefully you all can see it. And we're swinging around to the northwest side. And this is where the Flagstaff Urban Trail Center, I wish, the Flagstaff Urban Trail goes down into the wash. So you can see there's a little edge here that goes down. This is around the north side. This has been the area that many Indigenous voices have talked about. It would be nice for an outside dancing area or small sort of outdoor gathering space because there's beautiful views of the peaks and the pond. Anything else, Carrie?
Nope. And this is just that building that a lot of the conversations have centered around as the potential for. And so this kind of gives a nice view of how big that building is, where it's situated on the parcel. And then now we're kind of zooming it out so that you can see it within the context of the greater Thorpe Park area. So you can see those Little League fields in the the furthest fields towards the peaks. You can see the softball fields on the left-hand side. the pond, and kind of see where this parcel would fit and how it would be a nice kind of, it's all adjacent. So the addition is an easy kind of connection to the existing Thorpe Park area. And that is the end.
If you can leave that, oops,
Oh.
Can you leave that up for one more second? I wanted to just go ahead and add one more piece to this. Wait till she pulls that back up. While City Council has a property and a discussion which is bounded to the west by Aztec Road, there's been a lot of interest in furthering the discussions. Now, certainly, no official increase in the boundary, but there's been a lot of discussions surrounding this western side. I don't know, Carrie, can you kind of circle? And so what we've decided at this point is, it's fine. There's a western, we can see it. Yeah, there's a bunch of trees there on the west, just to the west of the garage buildings. That's kind of becoming this buffer area that a lot of conversation has, there's been conversation taking place there. And so we are continuing to sort of have dialogue there about whether it makes sense to include it, whether it doesn't make sense to include it. Rebecca or Rose, did you want to clarify I want to make sure I don't misspeak about that area, but I just wanted to let folks know that there has been some discussion there in terms of possible flexibility for the footprint. Did you want? Maybe not. Rose, did I do okay?
You did great. And I would really prefer
good.
Rebecca to answer that question.
Yeah, we will. I know she was in transit, so we'll give her a minute and hopefully she can join us. Okay, so moving on to a short presentation on kind of what we've heard so far to kind of get the conversation going. Can you all see my screen now? Do you see a waterfall?
Yes.
Yay, it works. So like we said, we've had the opportunity to probably interview probably 25 to 30 individuals, but they've been associated with organized groups. So you all in version 1, the Indigenous Public Advisory Council, People's Advisory Council of the county, and a few others. We have NACA on the books this week with Lavandria. We're looking forward to that. And so we've been pulling out the Indigenous voices sort of in their own little summary, which we will be sharing as we continue to talk with folks. And so let me see if I can move to the next slide. So what is this place that we're talking about? So as we talked about before, there's interest in having the center be at this historic building on site. There is a link to this really interesting report that Mark Revis has, and we can send that out to give you some history of the building. And our understanding is it would be the first established community center specifically intended for Indigenous communities in Flagstaff. We understand that other places have this, but there's a real lack of this kind of center in Flagstaff. Some of the goals are to include improving visibility of Indigenous people, healing the break and pattern of the erasure, and that there's opportunities for programming and building use inside. And so again, these are just some of the things that we've heard. We'd love to continue to talk with you today about what you think the goals of this center would be. And please pause. I will pause and make space for questions, although someone's going to have to help me with that because I don't see hands when I'm delivering. So what would the real and symbolic benefits be? And there's more information, in this sort of in the nuance of this, but that it would provide this wonderful sense of place, that it would be so important in the recognition of Indigenous voices, past and present and future, and that there would be really an opportunity for learning and leadership, lots of leadership and learning. How would it complement or supplement your organization? And what role could and would the Indigenous Commission of Flagstaff have into the future? When we've asked this question of others, again, this sense of belonging, both from youth to elders, we've not yet had an opportunity to work with youth and bring their voices into this yet. So we would love to explore ways in which we can do that, that there would be the possibility for traditional use, demonstrations, slightly different font size there. Apologize for that. Increase Indigenous visibility, and that this building and this center would be the anchor for the parcel, but the activities and thoughts and dreams and stories would spill out onto the property in a way that made sense and was complementary with what the rest of the parcel becomes. And then some of the programming suggestions, and this is just the partial list, would be focused on traditional teachings and knowledge. An opportunity for celebrations and homecomings, veterans specifically had been brought up. Also, potentially the opportunity for technology and career development. And then the list of specific programming goes on and on and on and on and on. Language, food, cooking, basketry, traditional growing and foods. As you may recall, in the southern part of the parcel, there's an active farm. There's a lease there. So there is an opportunity for growing, at least within the current lease. And it seems to me that, you know, it's pretty exciting that there's already a garden on the space and what the opportunities might be there. What hasn't been discussed, but also important, is how do we help bring this to fruition? So as a grounding place, our job within this contract with the city is to talk about the entire parcel, what the folks are interested in having on it, and then dive a little bit into this Indigenous Community and Cultural Center. But we would like to focus also on, we're working with design landscape designers. So how do we want the building to interact with the space? We fully recognize that in order to bring this to fruition, a whole nother group and people and activity and program would have to transpire. But some of the things that people have said in terms of implementation is this really needs to be intertribal, that there needs to be balanced voices at the table, that strong partnerships are key. There may be a need for some sort of steering committee or strong leadership to get this off the ground, and certainly learning from other models. Also, the recognition that having Indigenous leaders and designers is important. Thank you. I believe it was Commissioner Weatherby that shared that really beautiful website with folks, Indigenous people that have been working on architecture and designs of cultural centers across the country. I hope I have that right, but I really enjoyed looking at that website. So that's all we have in terms of a synthesis. We have more than that in words, but in terms of what I wanted to share with you to get going on our conversation today. But first, I'd like to pause for any questions that you have about the process, about where we're going, things like that. So I'm going to open it up for any questions you might have. Go ahead, Commissioner Toya.
Yes, I want to make a comment in regards to what you stated earlier, was having maybe a team with that. My question to you is, do you feel that that might make things a little more smoother for you? Do you feel that that's something that would benefit, or kind of, I guess, be that the gap between working with the community and yourself? I'd like to know, you know, your opinion also, because I like to understand, you know, what our needs are, and especially on the communication, because this is a very large project, and I understand that a lot of community members, organizations would like to have these new beginnings launch off in the right direction, so that we are fully prepared and understand all that comes along with it. Thank you.
Thank you. So Carrie, please chime in here as well. But I want to be clear that our role is about a year in process. And so by next fall, hopefully City Council will have a design in hand that they can approve. And at that time, there will be information of the Indigenous Community Cultural Center. Our role is to have these discussions with you, but also to talk about what other interests there are: recreation interests, community market interests. The Indigenous part of it is one important part. I also, while I would love to be involved, I don't know about whether we would be continuing to work at the next level of conversations of this. It would be an honor, but I also recognize that I'm not an Indigenous person. So it might be that, you know, we work collectively to find someone who could facilitate that dialogue, who can connect with you in a way that I am learning but cannot. And so, you know, our continuation of this is in the crystal ball, I guess. And it's such an honor to talk with you about this now. And we can recommend structural ways to continue having this dialogue. But in terms of the next phase and the Indigenous Community Cultural Center actually coming to fruition, that seems to me to be a part that will be in the future and a long process. Does that make sense? Rose, does that make sense to you as well?
Thank you. I think the clarification here, Commissioner Toya, is that the steering committee that that's being mentioned right here is not happening with SDR. It would be happening once a council approves who is going to be part of that parcel. And then if the Community Cultural Center is designated to be one of those partners, then there would be a steering committee, possibly, if that is the direction that goes. Right? Is that what I understand?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Much more clear than my answer. We hope to be there. We certainly will be an active member of the public if we're not continuing the dialogue. Does that make sense, Commissioner Toya?
Yes, absolutely, it does. Thank you, Rose, for helping out on that part. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions about the presentation and what we've heard so far? Okay, and Carrie, we didn't rehearse this, but because I know you're taking notes, would you mind revisiting the questions that we really know we would like to expand upon?
Absolutely, thank you. So when we first met, what feels like maybe a couple of weeks ago, but time is a weird thing these days. We talked a bit about programming. You all were able to give us some suggestions regarding types of programming that you would like to see both within the context of the building itself and on the property. So that was one of our questions, and we're happy to follow up with that as well. But today it would be really great to hear from you all about what could be the real and symbolic benefits of an Indigenous Community Cultural Center and what it would bring to families, individuals, and communities. So that's one question. And then the second question is, how would an Indigenous Community Cultural Center complement or supplement your individual organizations? And then also, what would the role of this commission be, or what could you envision it being in regards to this parcel and programming and implementation into the future? So the most feedback from you all today, but as with all of our conversations, we are happy to let these go down the paths that are important to you all, and you guys can help drive that conversation.
Can you paste that first question in the chat box, Carrie, and we'll start with that one.
Sure.
And we'd prefer, well, we won't say prefer, we would invite you all to just, someone please feel free to start this conversation, and we'll continue to sort of ask follow-up questions. And I think it's coming in right now. What are the real and symbolic benefits that an Indigenous Community Cultural Center would bring to individuals, to families, and to communities? So we'll give you a minute to digest that. And then I would love it if someone would just take a chance and start us off. Commissioner Scott, thank you.
In listening to your discussion about the youth, one of the things that came to my attention is that, down at Yavapai Apache and Camp Verde, Cottonwood, Clarkdale area, I think a lot of our young people, they don't realize the greater Native American community, up north, other than in sports programs, where they make the trip to Prescott or what other schools, it's not Prescott, Flagstaff and the other schools in the area. And so I think the participation of the young people, I think, is very important if this is going to be, if you're looking at something very sustainable. You have to get those young people involved. You have to get them orientated to the other traditions and cultures of other tribes within the area so they become more familiar with them. When I was in education, I used to take my students to these Native American youth conferences where they would get in touch with all these other different youth from different tribes across the country. And it was amazing to see, how much they enjoyed learning about these other cultures. And then also making friends with people so that they would communicate with them later on. And then if we went to a different conference in a different state, then they had kids that they would connect with. And so a lot of times, like my kids down in the Verde Valley, they're the only thing that they really associate a lot with is maybe in the White Mountains and in San Carlos. So our kids mainly are associated with those, and that's kind of a little bit distance from us. I really like the idea of trying to get our young people involved, in this process. So one of the other things that I've noticed too is when you were talking about getting people involved is I also noticed that there's a lot of White Mountain Apaches that come to the Flagstaff area too. So maybe some sort of connection with them, because I have some friends up there in White Mountains, and they're always telling me, well, we go to Flagstaff to go shop. We take the kids over there. So I think that's an important place also to look, since you're fairly close, or Flagstaff is fairly close. But I think, down in the Verde Valley, we do need that connection. I'm glad to hear about that and hope something turns out about it. I got a lady in mind right now that works in culture, works with our youth, and I'm sure she just loves to get involved in these kinds of things. And so I'm sure she would be glad to participate in this.
And this is when I ask you kindly, Commissioner Scott, to either put that in the chat box if you're comfortable with that, or rest assured we'll follow up with you. We're continuing to build our list. So thank you so much for bringing up two things I think we could really continue to discuss. And I see you, Commissioner Toya. I just wanted to so there's two things here that came up in my mind. One is this continued dialogue about youth and how to engage them. And we love your ideas on that. And the other thing is this sense of scope. And I talked with Rose about this very early on, but is this a statewide Indigenous Community Cultural Center? Is it centered upon Northern Arizona? Are there limits to, you see what I'm saying? Like, and we won't decide this, but I'm just curious about that. So Commissioner Toya, go ahead.
Thank you. And I want to share my opinion, and this stems from working with Native Americans for Community Action as a front line person within the past 4 years. And I believe that this cultural center is going to strengthen the identity of surrounding tribes. And when I say that, I mean by providing a place to Native Americans and non-Native Americans to come together to learn the ways of our own people that we may have lost. And this includes children, this includes middle age, this includes even elders. I've been through so many different presentations. That is the main request, is that they want to know the ways of our cultures. They want to find that sense of who they belong to, where they come from. So within that cultural center, we can provide that for them. We can how to regain their skills, how to touch up on their skills, or just know who and where they come from. Also, allow them to do these practices at that place, which means teaching them how to simply make maybe tortillas, how to dance, or how to do the regalia, and dances outside in that area that is clear. It doesn't have to be a weekly thing. It could be seasonal, and this is dances from all tribes. And I think the most important thing is just educating everyone. That way, people of the community better understand Native Americans that come here, that bring their, money here, everything that makes the circle spin. And so I think that is I see a vision that we start with, and then from there we can expand. And meaning expanding is, we touch further down south, north, other states, all those come down to play later on. Thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Others? Real and see, your last name is cut off, so I apologize for that. But I see your hand up.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Diana Kariai, and I'm a non-voting member of the commission, but I wanted to express my thoughts on this as well, and just maybe have others think about this, because I haven't heard it yet. And it's with the security of the area. How is that going to be implemented in a day-to-day planning of events that may take place there? It's sad to say, but it is a reality out there that there is more. We have seen and heard on the news about violence at synagogues and mosques and places like this, because they are people of color, so to speak, and of different faiths and of different beliefs. And we are right in the midst of that as Native people. We have experienced much violence. And so we don't know when this might happen. It's just something that people say after the fact. We didn't think this would, and we weren't prepared for it. And this, those type of shocked that people say afterwards. So we, as Native people, we, at least I am, I have lived in all different areas of the country, and I went to school in other. I felt like I was the only Native person. So as much as we all talk about wanting to be inclusive and be open, in reality, that's not the case with a lot of people who are now, I think we have seen, exposed to much more hate, contempt, and violence towards people of color and people of communities of color. So whatever their preconceived notion of what Native people should be, when we are not what they want us to be, it upsets their understanding and their expectations, and I think a cultural center like this, with what Commissioner Toya was saying, is wonderful. what it needs to be to bring out the connection between non-native and other people. We also need to be safe, and really think about the security of that place as well. You know, not just of the people that, especially of the people, because they're human beings and human lives at stake, but of the property itself. That's my thought. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see your hand, Commissioner Weathers. Continue that dialogue about safety. It seems to me that that is certainly something that needs robust discussion and dialogue, and it's not too early to start thinking about that. Anybody want to comment on that before we move to Commissioner Weathersby?
Is Rebecca
Okay.
in yet?
Oh, I don't know. Rebecca, are you here with us? I see RS. I think that's her. I can text her. Did you want her to address that a little bit, Rose?
Well, if she was available. Otherwise, the only
Yeah.
one I could think of would be Council Member Shimoni.
Yeah,
Hey,
I have
this
something
is
to-
Rebecca. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Rebecca.
We can. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Trouble hearing.
Well, we could hear you. Now we can't hear you.
Okay.
Oh, there you are. Keep talking.
Now you can hear me?
We
Yes.
can. It seems to be intermittent,
Oh my
but go
goodness.
ahead.
This is a comedy of errors, and I am so sorry that I'm transitioning back to my office right now. On the question of security, Rose, is that what you would like me to comment on?
Yes, please.
You bet. So I think I don't want to be a broken record. That will come in the later planning stages as well. Right now, what we're really trying to do, and Andy and Carrie can help me with this language, but we're just trying to see what kinds of ideas are there that have community support that we can take forward to City Council. And then once we move forward to those next steps, those kinds of details will be very important to consider. So I hear the concern, absolutely, and want to make sure that we continue that in the conversation. There will be notes from these meetings that we can come back and refer to and make sure that we pick those topics up at a later date when we're ready for that kind of planning. Does that help?
Yes, that definitely does. I think. Go ahead, Commissioner Kariai. Does that help you?
Yes, you know, it takes a while before I unmute, so. Okay, yes, it does. Thank you. This is just what my understanding of meetings at this point right now is, just throwing out ideas that could be considered later on in the planning process. So that's my thinking behind what I just said.
Correct. And rest assured that safety is already in the notes as very important in considerations for implementation. So I think we haven't lost sight, Commissioner Weathersby, of you, but I think Mr. Shimoni was going to say something.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be really quick. I really appreciate the comment that was brought up about safety, and it wasn't something on my radar as like an extra sensitivity that we should have, but I totally get it and I can totally appreciate it. So I just wanted to thank you for raising that. And as you've heard from other people, well, I think that's going to come down the line, but I'm glad it's being brought up now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, and
And I
really
believe
quick, I was just going to throw this out there for, I think for Rose or maybe for Rebecca. I'm just curious, is there any financial ask that is going to be brought forward to council this week at the budget in regards to next steps, what hiring a consultant, you know, putting money aside for that? I don't know, whatever that might look like, but something we should think about, since this Thursday and Friday is probably one of the more important budget retreats that the council is going to have this year. Thank you.
It's a good placeholder. Commissioner Weathersby, you were in line next. And Rose, I've just kind of taken over facilitation because it's in my nature and also because it's in this discussion. But if you want me to pass it back over to you in terms of order, let me know.
No, I'm just helping you watch the hands, but
Please,
I'm very
thank
happy
you.
that you're in charge.
Okay, teamwork. All right. Commissioner Weathersby, I think you were next.
In thinking about the students at Northern Arizona University and at Coconino Community College, and going back to the conversations that we had in regards to the land acknowledgement and the fact that it is a Indigenous community cultural center, I would not want to excluded from the center. And part of what conversations that I'm having with student leaders now is about how to be more inclusive of folks, because there are people who are multiracial, there are people who are multi-tribal, and having that support for people who are from different identities and different, I guess, knowledge carrying is very important, because the center can be a place of healing for the years of systemic abuses that have happened to Indigenous peoples. And so I think it's important that that is a consideration as you all are deciding who the contractors are, who the security personnel would be, and that those people that you are giving back to some Indigenous company as part of the people who are implementing any piece of that cultural community center. And I would say that even goes to, who is doing the IT. Is there an Indigenous company that is, for every single part of putting together this cultural center? Is there some Indigenous company or business that we can support? Is there and electric? And so every single component that goes into this building, that I ask that we intentionally identify those business owners who are Indigenous to support them and have them be part of that. And I think that would go a long way as well in having the as the website's built, or the information for marketing and sharing out about it, that it was intentionally these folks were identified to come and put this building together as a community healing center. And just thinking about even the residential schools, and we know that a lot of people were taken and removed from their language and their teachings. So being mindful that not everybody has the same understandings and that they should still be welcome there. But I do agree that security is very important. And so I just wanted to share that just in thinking about where the students have been sharing their experiences here in the city of Flagstaff, Indigenous people from within the state and tribal nations within the state, but also from outside of Flagstaff, who do come here and give to the community and live here, for 4 to 6 years, or, may even decide to stay here. So, thank you for taking the time to listen.
Thank you for sharing. I believe that Commissioner Gishi had her hand up, and then I see your hand next. Shimoni?
Mishi. They're calling you.
Good morning. For some reason, can you hear me?
We can.
My picture won't come on, but anyhow, I wanted to indicate that when we are given this opportunity to have a cultural center, I think one of the main important things is that as Indigenous people, we'll be able to be given an opportunity to have the front stage to do what we need to provide education to our community. One of the things that I'm beginning to see is that our younger people who, especially for those that do not live on Indigenous lands, have really lost touch with their cultural teachings, and this would be a great opportunity for us to make those presentations. One of the things that I see with the African American community is that they host regular community engagement sessions. And this being a Black History Month, there's a lot of presenters that they bring in on a weekly basis, touching on different topics. And this would be an opportunity for us to do that, to engage our community and to not only do virtual sessions, but also in-person learning when that becomes available again. And then this would be an opportunity for us to this would present volunteer opportunities for our community. It would present learning opportunities as well, and bring a sense of community here to Flagstaff. And one of the things that Commissioner Scott indicated was that he used to take his students to conferences. My cultural stage was during the Flagstaff powwow. I didn't realize the amount of Native Americans that were in Arizona until my family and I participated, learned about their cultural history, their dances, and mingling with them, we got to know some of those different people from different nations. And that was my stage of learning about culture with other nations. And this would present us that opportunity to be the learning stage for our young people as well as people in general. And so it would give us an opportunity to not only talk about Flagstaff history, the Hispanic history, the Asian history, as well as the settlers' history and our history as well, because all of that is the history of Flagstaff. It's the history of how Flagstaff became what it is prior to. I mean, we all know that we're the original hosts of the lands, but when we make those acknowledgments, I think we present our community with more educational opportunities, and therefore being able to be seeing each others as neighbors more than anything. And we have our arts, we have our culture, and and not only ours, but also bringing in different people to make these presentations would be our one of the viewpoints of our stage that we would bring to the community.
Thank you, Commissioner Gishi. Councilman Shimoni, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Andy, and thank you, commissioners, for the comments. I love this conversation that's happening, and it's really exciting to think about all these different points that are being shared. I think it was Commissioner Weathersby that I think you spoke about the support of Indigenous businesses and partners through this effort. And I love that. I think that's great. And I think that would really help to build trust with these relationships and partners that we're engaging in this process. But that's going to take some real intention. And if that is something that this commission, recommends, we do, I think that maybe it's something we could work to do, but I don't know, Rose, we'll have to figure out how we do that. But I think that would take some real intent. Really cool. Commissioner Gishi, you spoke about, front stage and younger people, and other people spoke to similar things. And I think Commissioner Scott was speaking about young people as well. And I was just thinking, what role does NAU play in all this? And also, just thinking about the Kinlani dormitory. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Shimoni. Co-Chair Washington, go ahead.
Yes. In speaking about the finding Indigenous people to do work on the facility, plumbers or different people, one of the things I want to mention that the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff had convened community forums, and the Indigenous Community Center was one of these ideas that emerged from the community forums. And the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff is an Indigenous organization. It's in the bylaws that a person must be Indigenous in order to serve on the board of directors. So it's a 100% Indigenous organization. And one of the things that ICF sees is putting together possibly, to be very involved in the building of the Indigenous Community Cultural Center, and to look for grants. And there are grants that are specifically available to Indigenous organizations that could be used to hire Indigenous workers on this. So I think that as Council Member Shimoni was saying, is looking into ways to do it, I think that this is a way to do it. If we get grants, and we would be able to hire Indigenous people in putting together the Indigenous Community Cultural Center.
Thank you, Co-Chair Washington. Commissioner Weathersby?
Oh, thank you. I was essentially going to share what Co-Chair Washington was saying, is that we know people, we are connected to people, and I don't think that would be an obstacle in supporting Indigenous business owners and the community here to be able to bring them together to, and I know that they would be interested in, supporting this. But I don't think, yes, we need to be intentional, but I don't think that that's an obstacle by any means.
Thank you. Commissioner Phillips. Commissioner Phillips, was your hand up? I believe it is.
Oh, I was talking to myself. I was on mute.
Well, we're our own
Okay.
biggest fans, aren't we?
Yeah, really, huh? Okay, so I was saying earlier that I wanted to follow up on Commissioner Scott and Toya in terms of what they have brought out. And I'm sorry, I'm getting over a sore throat. So, anyway, there's been several subjects brought up, but let me talk about the youth here for a moment. So, strengthening, trying to strengthen, trying to decolonize, trying to re-indigenize who we are has been one of the biggest challenges. And so strengthening the identity of who we are, that's we also know that's a challenge in it. As the saying goes, caught between two worlds and two cultures, and that has led to a very sad statistics of our Native American youth ranking #1 for suicide. And so not only does it strengthen our identity, but it's also healing. There's such a thing as cultural healing, and that's what we need for our youths. And I've traveled abroad, and I've seen many different types of cultures, and I see these little young ones, talking their own language, and it's sad to say that for us, we don't have that because of the colonization that has taken place. So, and so statistics are, it shows that by the year 2050, which is just around the corner, that if there's no major attempts to try and recultivate, culture in every sense of the word, we're going to lose out. We're going to lose out on the culture and the language, especially the language. And as they say, anthropologists is people out there, once the language dies out, the culture starts to die out too. So anyway, these are just some of the things that I wanted to highlight, because this proposed cultural center, I think that will really, really help us to shed light on a lot of these issues. And NAU has been brought out and so forth. And I think at the last discussion that we had, maybe even hosting like some kind of a speakers bureau and bringing in like people from NAU and Native American authors and so forth that can really touch bases with a lot of these issues that where our youths are missing out on. So that's what I wanted to bring out. And so far, people have brought out some very, very good good issues that I think that could be further corroborated, and um, making it into the highlights of the final plan that will come out of these discussions. So so anyway, I wanted to just mainly bring out that some data on where our youths are at. And just this morning, I had heard too that they want a major lawsuit, but money is not going to replace all these youths that the tribal nations across America they have lost. So that's another sad statistics right there, and so we continue to be collaborated on is culture, because culture is our heritage, and that's also our roots. You look at a tree, if you cut off the roots, what is going to happen to that tree? that's what's happening in our part of this country where the Indian nations reside. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Weathersby, is your hand up again? If so, fantastic. If not, I lost track.
It is. I just wanted to
Great.
add, there was a comment earlier about NAU, and the NAU Strategic Plan Work Group, as far as the commitment to Native Americans, they are doing listening sessions. Tomorrow they have one for staff, and on Saturday there is one for the Indigenous community and alumni, where they're doing listening sessions to identify things that would best support Indigenous students here at the institution. And so I just wanted to share that is an opportunity to make that connection with the university, because it's the work group, it consists of our Vice President of Native American Initiatives, Anne Marie Chischili, and Dr. Ora Merrick Martinez, who is the Executive Director of the Native American Cultural Center. And just thinking of, I guess, the kind of almost the intersections of what this project is and what the university was able to do in 2011, of creating this center. And I know we receive a lot of requests from community members, as well as teachers who are wanting to utilize space for their students. And that's like teachers at, the middle school, or even, some of the elementary schools, and they don't have a space to be able to come and bring the children to do certain teachings that they would like to do. And so I think that that's also, as we're talking about community and what we envision, that a place where people would be able to reserve the the elementary schools or the junior high schools or the high schools here in Flagstaff, in addition to NAU's location.
Thank you. Commissioner Weathersby, will those listening sessions be virtual? And if so, will they be recorded?
They are virtual, and I am not sure whether they will be recorded or not. But folks can send in, if they can attend. So like the one that's on for the community and alumni is on Saturday from 11 to 1, and it's on Zoom. And I can share out that information, but they also have where you can submit comments to strategicroadmap@nau.edu for folks who would be unable to attend those specific meetings.
Great.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I think we have done really well as it relates to our first question. Explore in here, and I see your hand. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. Let me get my camera on. I'm here. So sorry about the challenges earlier. Andy, I just wanted to circle back to Councilmember Shimoni. I think he might have had a comment that he put in the chat. So just wanted to double check on him.
Sure. Thank you, Rebecca. I was actually just making a note to bring it up at the end because it wasn't exactly relevant, but I'll just say it really quick. Commissioners, we have a $30,000 budget this year for video work, and I'm hoping that budget amount continues for years to come. So in terms of communication and whatnot, I just wanted to plant that seed that maybe we can have a future discussion about maybe some video outreach, messaging, and communication. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie, unfortunately, was that all you had, Rebecca? You good? Okay. Look at me, I'm lowering your hand for you. It's not nice of me.
So
Carrie,
many new skill sets today.
So many new skills today. Carrie, can you read the question? It got cut off in the chat box.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay. Trying to do a multitude of things here with taking notes and with teams. So yes, just making sure. So the second question is, how would it, and it being the Indigenous Community Cultural Center, complement or supplement your organization? And what role could or would the Indigenous Commission of Flagstaff have into the future as it pertains to probably both the parcel and to the ICCC?
Anybody want to take a turn at that? Please.
Hello, this is
In
Dorothy.
terms of, go ahead, Dorothy. Thank you.
As Joe mentioned earlier, that the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff had a series of community forums, and this is one of the reasons why this topic came to fruition, as well as other things that the city has been doing, and we really appreciate the commitment that the council has continued to support in with the Indigenous Community Circle, and a lot of that, a lot of the things that were indicated during those forums, people wanted to bring those to the Indigenous Circle. And I think that's one of the reasons, saying that we have these different organizations, but they're not providing the services that we need, or they're not, the community basically said we need more. So with that, the Indigenous Community Circle has taken it upon themselves to really push a lot of these initiatives forward. And I think they're in a good position to take the lead with this with this initiative. And since the Indigenous Commission is part of the city's is part of the city of Flagstaff, I mean, they would, I think, work hand in hand with the efforts of this initiative. And we can always bring in, I mean, there's always room for partnerships, and there's always room to add dialogue along the way. I mean, that within the Indigenous Circle, I mean, that's how things get done, is with teamwork.
Thank you. Co-Chair Washington?
Yes, to follow up on that, specifically, the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff is a 501c3 corporation, and the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff would like to lease this property from the city of Flagstaff, and then to raise funds, either privately or through grants, for building the structure of a Indigenous Community Cultural Center. So it's a specific kind of proposal for a lease. And we have had discussions with council members about that, and presented that to mention that to City Council. And so that's the specific structure that we're looking at. I know that the city leases other facilities. I'm also on the Theatricos board, which is community theater group, and the city of Flagstaff leases property to Theatricos for plays and performances. And so that's a specific initiative. ICF has worked with the community, and there's a lot of interplay between ICF and other Indigenous organizations such as NACA. Fontoya, who works for NACA, is a member of our board. In fact, she's the vice chair of the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff. And so, so specifically, we're looking at a lease as to how our organization would be affected and so on like that. A lease from the city for the facility at Thorpe Park.
Thank you. I don't know specifically. I'm trying to think and talk at the same time. And I'd ask for your help, Rose and Rebecca, on this in terms of what other avenues we'd like to explore. As you may remember, or maybe not, we next have started to think about we have a community survey that we'd like to send out to the community to begin to ask them spatially on the property, where would you like to see things happen and what would you like to see? And these early conversations have really helped us inform that survey. And so that survey will be coming out soon. As part of this process, we will ask you all, and we love to capacity build early in these processes. We'd really ask you to forward that survey broadly when you do receive it in your inboxes. At the same time, we are planning, hopefully, some gatherings at the space. In advance of that, we will probably be delivering webinar. Sounds a little bit too formal to me, but some information about the project, that it's kind of some launching information, and the link to the survey. So the process itself is about to launch, even though we've been talking with people for several months. And I guess, Rebecca and Rose, we have another half an hour here. Are there things that you would like to explore, or shall we? I kind of want to sense the group and say, are there big buckets of information? I see your hand, Commissioner Toya, that we haven't gotten to yet. Rebecca, I'll give you that opportunity real quick, and then we'll get to you, Commissioner Toya.
Yeah, the answer is this is a plethora of information already. I think we have a lot to go from. I think we have interests and important items to consider as we continue to move this process forward. So I think we're doing really well. Thank you, Andy.
Commissioner Toya, go ahead.
So let me just make a quick comment. As Commissioner Washington did express that I do sit on the board as the vice chair of the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff, but I have been sitting here thinking this, and I think a lot of you all need to understand from my view is that this place, cultural center, is going to help in regards to where and how and what services our people and other people need. And I speak for all members of the community because I help and work with all members. So nobody's ever excluded, but meaning to the fact that we'll definitely need places of comfort, of healing, of strengthening, and which brings on the point of me right now. I'm working on a project which is a drop-in center, which is going to provide services different from what the community cultural center would provide. And then just the fact that knowing that there are going to be services available to people to meet their needs, and whether it be, if they're going through hardship, whether it's healing, whether it's, just getting that education. So I just wanted to stress that, I see it from all views, from the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff. I see it from the NACA view, servicing the people through supportive services. And I also gap to providing that service. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Toya. Councilman Shimoni, sounds like you
Yeah,
are willing
all
to
right.
offer a comment.
Sorry, Commissioner, I guess I'm in a talky mood today. But Co-Chair Washington, just hearing the conversation today and hearing that ICF is planning to have maybe an integral role in all this. I just thought that maybe I'd be curious what the commission thought about, maybe having ICF come and present to the commission and speak to the commission about their organization, their members, their struggles, their successes. At least through my perspective, that would be helpful for me. And then I'd also want to specifically maybe dive into like the plan for how we're going to be inclusive of all the different tribal groups and peoples and whatnot through this process, led in part by ICF. And I know this is all very early talk, but if ICF is going to lead the way, I just want to, I guess, dive into those things a little bit more to ensure that we're hitting the mark and not furthering any divide, but doing our best to really heal and unite and bring together. I know there's challenges and struggles, and I'm not in the weeds like some of you are, but I just know how we are as humans and how our differences can be difficult to, navigate and collaborate around. But if we need to bring in a third party to help with this and help ICF, like a consultant or something, I would see value in that potentially. But Chair, I see your hand up, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Andy. That was my comment.
Thank you. Co-Chair Washington, go ahead.
Yes, I think that having someone from ICF make a presentation to the Indigenous Commission, if the Indigenous Commission would like that, I think that's an excellent idea. It would be someone other. I happen to be the chair of the Indigenous Circle Flagstaff, and as I mentioned, Commissioner Toya is the vice chair. It would be actually another person from ICF, from the ICF board, that would make such a presentation. But I think it's an excellent idea, and I would be interested to know if the other commissioners would like that kind of presentation to be made.
I definitely agree. This is Commissioner Toya. This is something that I know we are behind on, but it is happening.
Commissioner Coutier?
This is Commissioner Kariai.
Kariai, apologies.
That's okay. Is Rose, maybe Rose and Dorothy, maybe it's more of a question to you guys too, but also just to kind of put it out on the table there, since we're talking about this for the Indigenous communities from elsewhere and to be inclusive. Would it be maybe if ICF has a presentation for the Indigenous Commission, could we invite the Indigenous Peoples Council as well? Thank you.
Commissioner
As a
Cuddy,
person who
I appreciate that. I think that is all great ideas. I mean, where the Indigenous Commission is only meeting every other month right now, and so having to have different groups come in in and provide presentations where we sort of kind of had a lineup for a while, and now so that one's kind of coming down. I know that housing wanted to housing and carbon neutrality, and other groups wanted to make sure that they got their time into as well as the alternative response model as well. And so there's just a lot to pay attention to. And I think that when we have these presentations from other groups to work together, I think that is a really great idea, that we have the time to do that, and the intention to, you know, to make it happen. So I take your suggestions, and I think that's a good idea. And also to comment on Councilman Shimone's recommendation, and just to say that I think everybody has difficulties everywhere. No agency is immune to it. I mean, we have it everywhere. And so I think that that is part of our healing, is part of, I think that once we have this relationship with the city, it's important to keep it strong. It's important to know where that came from. And it's important to know that we need to make sure we support those collaborations and those partnerships. And those are some things that we're really trying to do here. And I just wanted to say that. And I think that having these presentations is also good from IPAC as well. Thank you.
Oh, this is Commissioner Kariai. I think I wasn't trying to say that IPAC will do a presentation. It was just to invite IPAC to listen in on this when ICF and the Indigenous, when ICF presents to Indigenous Commission. That's all I was saying. I don't think IPAC, like you're saying, it's all about timing as well. So I don't think that would really fit in right now. So thank you.
Yeah, I understand. But I think a presentation is probably a good idea at some point down the road. An invitation is always there.
We so appreciate your time today. We do have, you all have an additional half an hour on your meeting schedule. I'll leave that up to you, Rose, and others if there's other things you need to discuss. Like I said, this project will officially launch probably in about 3 weeks to a month. At that time, you will see a website which will have all sorts of goodies on it, including that neat little video that you saw, and invitations to some virtual sessions on what this project is all about. Also at that time, a community survey will launch in terms of place-based ideas, building off of what we've already heard. And then working into the spring and summer, we'd like to really coalesce around some design ideas for the property in person, crossing our fingers. So I think we have gotten so much information from you all. We'll be in touch, and please forward along the launch information to others. And we so appreciate your time today. So Rose, I'll turn it back over to you. Look, your hand is up. Perfect timing.
Thank you. The only thing I also wanted to say was back to your question on how the Indigenous Commission, what they will have going into the future. And I think that the Indigenous Commission is going to be vitally important in advising the council. And so I think this is where the commission needs to always keep in mind that their voice and their recommendations and their advice to the city council is going to be very, could be very intentional, and could be very, and it is a very important. So just one listens to them, and you're a part of that voice. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rose. Thank you so much to everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Ann.
I'll let
Have
you
a good
let.
afternoon.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'll go
Thank
on
you,
that.
everyone.
Before
I'll go on that,
everybody
everybody.
goes, before everybody
Oh,
goes,
wait, Rose has something to say.
What, Rose? What?
I apologize. Well, I just wanted to express my appreciation and to Commissioner Scott. This is probably going to be his last meeting with us. He will not continue his journey with us with the commission, but I know that his voice is always going to be there. So I really appreciate. I want to just say I really appreciate him and his willingness to help us get our start with this commission. And he provided a lot of important viewpoints, and I just cannot say enough to say thank you to that. And also, we have, as I understand it, around 11 applicants. The council will make that determination sometimes this month. And so just wanted to let you know. Thank you. And Commissioner or Co-Chair Washington, I'll turn it over to you again, and we'll go from there again.
Okay, there is another item on the agenda, but Commissioner Weathersby has her hand up, so recognize her.
Thank you. I was just wondering who the second position was, because I thought that the call for applicants was for 2 positions.
Yes. Are you asking who has termed out?
Yes.
Well, Commissioner Toya is one of them, and Commissioner Scott is the other one. So their term is up, but they are still participating until a replacement is named.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
I want to join Rose in expressing appreciation to Commissioner Scott. He and I are good friends and have known each other for quite some time, worked together at the Yavapai Apache Nation. So, Mr. Scott, I really appreciate what you've done for Indigenous people.
Well, thank you, Mr. Washington. And thank you, Rose. I've enjoyed my time with you guys. I'm sorry I can't continue care of, so which encompassed babysitting, as you all know how that goes. So anyway, I've enjoyed it. It's interesting. I'm anxious to see how this center turns out and the different types of programs that it has to offer the communities. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. And I also have a question. As was mentioned, Commissioner Toya, there was kind of like, because the Indigenous Commission is a new commission, there were staggered terms and there were short terms and so on like that. Would Commissioner Toya need to express her interest specifically in being appointed to a full term, or is that just taken for granted? Maybe Rose could answer that.
Well, all the applications are going to be sent to council when they're ready. And so I think that's when, I don't think that would be necessary.
Okay. All right. So Commissioner Toya would kind of automatically be considered in for reappointment.
All the applicants that have turned in their applications will be considered.
Okay. And Councilmember Shimoni has his hand up.
Thank you, Co-Chair Washington. I guess I was just curious, Commissioner Toya, if you have turned in an application, and I guess the reason I bring that up, Co-Chair Washington and Rose, is because as a council member, when we make appointments, when I see someone reapplying, they definitely, get a little more priority in my mind. But if I don't see a full application and like an explanation of who this person is and why they want to be involved in their connections and kind of making their sale, their pitch to me, again, I tend to maybe overlook that personally a little bit. So this might just be a Commissioner Toya that, in your reapplication, make sure you explain who, just a little bit about your background and why in your involvement, and not just submit a blank application for reapplying. Just my comment. Thank you.
I also just wanted to say that the applications did close on the 30th. So right now they're in Stacy Fobar's hands. And I really don't want to put Fawn on the spot.
I believe
Well,
she has her hand.
Yes, I do have my hand up, and I know we've come a long way, and everybody's very curious to my status, but this has been in my heart, and I haven't joined a group for no reason for the last 4 years, which is the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff. And so therefore my application was submitted before the deadline. I believe I did state my reason why I wanted to remain on the commission, and my heart and my mind and my soul is fully into this path for our people. So thank you all, and thank you for having that faith in me. It really means a lot to me. And I do represent the Hopi tribe, and I have been, and I will continue. Thank you all. Ascoli.
Yes, thank you, Fawn, and your service means a lot to us. So we look forward to the council taking strong consideration of your application. The next, the next item on the agenda is to discuss our regular meeting schedule for 2022, and it states currently the schedule is bi-monthly, and the question is asked, do commissioners prefer to change or keep the current schedule of the second Thursday of every other month, 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. I would mention that I am a member of the Citizens Bond Committee, and there is a scheduling conflict with that to some degree, and so Thursdays are somewhat a problem for me, but I could miss some of those bond committee meetings. I would not want to, but that's a possibility. So, and then of course this commission meets less frequently than the bond committee. But the question is, do you prefer to change or keep the current schedule of the second Thursday every other month, 4:30 to 6:30 p.m.?
This is Commissioner Toya. I would like to make a request that we change the date on for the Thursday, because Joe does have important obligation, and he is an asset to the group. I don't know if anybody else agrees. And also, we do have a lot of projects happening and a lot of communication that needs to happen. So this is my opinion. Once a month meeting. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Thoughts?
This is Commissioner Weathersby. I'm wondering, if we have, I know we've done a couple of doodles now, doodle polls, and so I'm just wondering, is there a time that we found that kind of has been consistent, or, you know, because I think it seems as though everyone was able to make it today. So is this time from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. a time that we could consider, since we have many folks who are on the call?
Any thoughts on that from the other commissioners? This time would work out for me, and it would be good to have it set. As some of you know, I practice in tribal courts, and court hearings can be scheduled. If I know that a time is blocked out for the Indigenous Circle, I can pick court dates that don't conflict with this time.
This is
Commissioner Phillips.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
So today is Tuesday from 11 to 1. My schedule is always challenging. However, if this is workable for everybody, then I can block this time so that I can be in attendance at these meetings. So I'd like to accommodate, you know, Co-Chair Washington's schedule as much as possible, because as Commissioner Toya brought out, you know, that he is a tremendous asset, not only to this Indigenous Commission, but to the Indigenous Circle of Flagstaff. So thank you very much.
Commissioner Phillips, today is Wednesday, just so you know.
Did I say Wednesday?
You said Tuesday.
I'm sorry, a Wednesday, yeah.
So today's
Okay.
Wednesday. For me, if anyone wants to know, right now, this time works perfectly for me too.
I like how we had a quorum, so I think that's one of the important highlights we have to consider.
This is Commissioner Weathers. Can I make a motion, or are we not there yet?
I think you could make a motion. It's on the agenda. And yes.
So I make a motion that we have our meetings the first Wednesday of the month from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed say nay? And is anyone abstaining? Okay, it looks like the ayes have it, and that will be the, our meetings will be on the first Wednesday of the month, and from 11 to 1. The next item on the agenda is informational items to and from commission members, staff, and future agenda item requests. Do we have any informational items or future agenda item requests? Councilmember Shimoni.
Yeah, thank you, Co-Chair. I'll just circle back. Just, you know, now that we're going to be meeting monthly, I think Rose will be able to maybe do more. Not to add more to your plate, Rose, but I just wanted to circle back with that video idea and see if there's interest in, like, you know, maybe having a conversation about some kind of outreach plan or communication plan, or I don't know, not trying to add too much more work to you, Rose, particularly, but I just think that there is an opportunity to start telling our story and your stories and everything, and empowerment and whatnot through communication, whether it's video, graphics, however so. And just wanted to share that thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shimoni. Okay, the next item on the agenda is adjournment, and so we will now adjourn. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Rose, are you there?